On the front lines of a deadly outbreak in San Diego, the safety measures deployed by the largest provider of homeless services in the region.
Thank God MTS is finally listening to us. For years, we have been on MTS to increase transportation here.
Big changes coming to San Diego's bus network and the people who say it's a gamble.
The Carousel has so much history, and we want to celebrate that. And the best way to celebrate that is to preserve it and to restore it back to its former glory.
Ready for another spin at Balboa Park. All this Carousel needs is a little TLC. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A new legal fight shaping up for President Trump's border wall project. California's Attorney General has filed a lawsuit to block it. He says the plans to construct this wall along the San Diego Imperial County could harm the state's sensitive environmental resources. KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero has more.
I'm here at Borderfield State Park, where Attorney General Becerra announced his lawsuit against the border wall. President Trump's plans to build a wall are expected to start right here, with reconstruction on the existing double-layer fencing.
We respect immigration policy. We understand it's a federal matter. But if it happens in our backyard, we demand that it be carried out in the right way, following the rule of law.
Earlier this year, the Trump administration announced plans to waive dozens of environmental and cultural protection laws to build the border wall more quickly.
You can't just sort of say, I'm going to do it the way I want.
Becerra says that's not okay. The lawsuit argues that the government's authority to waive laws in the name of border security expired in 2008, after 600 miles of fencing were already built along the border.
The state of California very proudly has some of the most strong and progressive coastal resource protection laws in the nation.
The Center for Biological Diversity filed a similar lawsuit this summer, citing environmental concerns related to the border wall, as well as prototypes for the border wall, which are expected to be built in San Diego this fall. The Attorney General's lawyers said they may seek an injunction against the building of prototypes in San Diego, which may delay construction further. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The nation's top law enforcement officer says he expects the Trump administration will prevail in legal challenges to its proposed border wall project.
Well, in the United States, anybody can sue, but the United States of America has a border. The United States government has the control of that border and a responsibility to secure it. We would expect to be fully successful in moving forward with a border wall as Congress gives us the money to do so.
The Attorney General talked to reporters today in San Diego. He was in town to highlight Coast Guard drug seizures in the Pacific. The crew of the Coast Guard cutter Stratton offloaded 50,000 pounds of cocaine and heroin today. The drugs seized have an estimated street value of more than $679 million. Rescuing people and treating the wounded are Mexico's two top priorities today following a powerful earthquake in Mexico City. Government officials say 52 people have been rescued so far. Rescuers are working against the time to find more people trapped in the debris. Yesterday's magnitude 7.1 quake toppled schools, homes, and businesses. At least 223 people were killed in several states. Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto has declared 3 days of national mourning to honor the victims. State emergency response officials are monitoring several requests for aid coming from Mexico, and rescue teams are standing by. Officials say they could be sending the teams with specialized training on managing search and rescue operations following the earthquakes.
We've talked about everything from urban search and rescue teams to experts in structural damage to folks who are experts in recovery and how do you recover after a massive earthquake, because California has a lot of experience in that. And so the Mexican government is now deciding what resources they'll need now for the second, third phase of their response.
Officials with Cal Office of Emergency Services says the Mexican government is still in the first phase of its rescue operation by utilizing local crews and will soon ask for outside resources. With the deadly hepatitis outbreak growing in San Diego, the largest provider of homeless services in the region is speaking out. Father Joe's Villages shelters nearly 1,900 homeless people a day. The nonprofit has seen the impact of the outbreak firsthand. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
I personally have lost one of my patients who I'd seen for almost 2 years. I've actually had some of our medical assistants within our clinic actually come to me and say, I think that person has hepatitis A. Their eyes are yellow, they're feeling sick.
Together, Father Joe's and San Diego County have worked to vaccinate around 1,200 people at the shelter. Hand washing stations have also been set up outside the facility.
They're definitely using them. In fact, we know they're using them because they run out right, very, very often, and they have to be refilled, and that's okay.
We're here at the corner of 14th and G, where the city of San Diego is taking some extra steps to fight the hepatitis A outbreak. Now, as of Tuesday, 444 confirmed cases, an additional 44 pending confirmation. This is what they're doing. They're installing some new bathrooms. They just installed these 4 at the corner of 14th and G, and if you take a look, we'll take you inside one of them. They're just porta potties. You go inside, they're fairly clean. These ones were just cleaned about 15 minutes before we got here. Toilet paper, clean in there. And they also have these changing tables. So after you use the bathroom, one of the biggest and most important pieces is hand washing. So they have hand washing stations. There's 41 now set up downtown. And this is the pump hand wash station, and you can wash your hands here. Because Hep A can spread so easily, the city's encouraging people to use the bathrooms and washing stations. But some people aren't worried.
I don't know. I never bothered looking into it.
How come?
I don't use needles, and I live indoors, and I don't think I'll ever get hepatitis A. Yeah.
So have you gotten the hepatitis A vaccine or shot?
No, I had.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
El Cajon is taking an aggressive stance against the hepatitis outbreak. City workers have power washed sidewalks. Hand washing stations have been installed in several places, including bus and trolley stops. Police have accompanied nurses to administer vaccinations to high-risk populations. And workers have cleaned all city restrooms with disinfectants powerful enough to kill the virus. People with diabetes can develop serious problems with blood circulation, and without proper care, they may find themselves undergoing amputations. Reporter Cheryl Clark with our media partner iNewsSource found that clinicians are amputating limbs in California and San Diego at a worrisome rate.
Until 2010, diabetes-related amputations were declining across the country. But since then, that trend has reversed in California at a rate that has mystified experts. iNewsSource analyzed state hospital data and found 31% more patients with diabetes were having lower limbs amputated because of wounds and infections. But in San Diego County, the increase was 66%. Doctors aren't sure why there's an increase, but some factors include more people with access to health care and older people living longer with diabetes and infections that were not addressed early enough to avoid amputation. Edward Gregg of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said it's important to recognize that amputations are a measure of the quality of a community's diabetes care.
If we see it going down, then that's a good sign, because so many aspects of good diabetes care are in theory affected, and if you see it going up, it's concerning.
Father Joe Carroll, a Catholic priest and creator of Father Joe's Villages for the Homeless, is warning people to listen to their doctors.
Otherwise, you'll be like me, 2 feet cut off. I've lost one eye, and I'm losing the other eye, all because of diabetes. It's a terrible disease, but you can manage it if you listen to the doctor, do the diet, take the medicine, take the shots, and lose weight. Simple.
For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Cheryl Clark.
iNewsSource is a nonprofit, independently funded partner of KPBS. Fewer people are riding buses in San Diego County, and now the Metropolitan Transit District is considering some changes that would cut routes in some areas while increasing them in others. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it's something of a gamble, and there are winners and losers.
Been working on transit projects since 1985, and really involved with it for 35 years.
I meet Maria Cortez at a bus stop in City Heights. She's lived in this neighborhood for more than 40 years.
We are on the corner of University and Marlboro, and the 7 runs quite frequently here.
Cortez rides the bus almost every day. She says transit in City Heights is a lot better than it used to be. This neighborhood has a relatively low rate of car ownership, which is one reason why the bus routes serving City Heights are so successful. A lot of people depend on them.
To us, it shows that MTS is caring about what happens to us here in City Heights.
Under MTS's transit optimization plan, several bus routes serving City Heights and the greater mid-city area are getting more frequent service. Some routes are also being shortened or split into 2 segments, so delays don't happen as often. Cortez says she's thrilled.
Thank God MTS is finally listening to us. For years, we have been on MTS to increase transportation here. And not only just here, but throughout San Diego, period. And with the transit coming in, with the increase in the transit, that's going to be great. I think it's awesome, and we need to start somewhere, so why not here?
Of course, new bus services aren't free. To help pay for the increased frequency, MTS is planning cuts to other routes that are less popular. One of them is Bus 83, which connects downtown with Mission Hills. The route has seen its ridership plummet in the past decade. Much of its route now serves a low-density neighborhood with homes worth more than $1 million. Still, some advocates say the bus's remaining riders depend on it.
Anytime you take away service, there's some people that are impacted.
Paul Jablonski is the CEO of MTS.
We understand that. We care about that. That's why we outreach. That's why we listen. That's why we go through great lengths to try to do compromises where we can still keep it.
With fewer people riding transit, MTS is getting less revenue from passenger fares. Jablonski says he saw 2 options for getting out of the resulting budget deficit: cutting services or trying to grow out of the problem.
With our clientele, I always want to do fare increases as the last resort. I want to keep transit a good value for people, but I want it to be productive and to make sure that we can never be accused of running around empty buses, okay? And so this was a look at that.
Beyond just cutting less productive services, MTS also plans on using funds from the state gas tax increase to fund the transit plan. That money might not last long. There's a campaign to repeal the gas tax increase. Still, with growing ridership as the end goal, Jablonski says this is the right thing to do.
It is a little bit more of a gamble, but, you know, it's the old adage, sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And with us, it is about making money because we only have so much to spend, and we want to maximize service.
Maria Cortez acknowledges the added service in City Heights partly comes at the expense of less popular bus routes.
You know, I live here in City Heights, but I also care about what happens in San Diego because what affects one community, it affects us all. But if there's not that many people that are riding the bus, then they do need to increase more frequency in the others where, like with us here, we are riding the bus a lot and we have a lot of ridership.
The MTS Board of Directors will decide whether to approve MTS's plans Thursday morning. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A coalition of 15 states, including California, promoted a U.S. climate alliance today. Governor Brown says the alliance is on track to meeting the goals of the Paris Climate Accord.
It takes rules enshrined in law, and it takes market and tax incentives to drive the investments in the innovation we need, whether it's the sophisticated grid that has to be built for intermittent renewable energy, whether it's zero-emission vehicles, whether it's the building standards and appliance standards we all need. That can, to a great degree, be driven by state law and state leadership.
The alliance is in response to President Trump, who said the U.S. was pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement to fight global warming. Paris deal supporters predict Trump's withdrawal could cause almost irreparable damage to America's standing abroad and potentially America's ability to negotiate diplomatic agreements. A couple of rain showers are on the way, but clear skies and sunshine are arriving soon after. Erin Calandra has more in tonight's forecast.
Boy, is it beautiful here in San Diego today. A bit below average as far as temperatures, but plenty of sunshine. Take a look at our radar and satellite the last couple hours. There's really nothing going on here. It is pretty quiet, and that's the case for much of the southwest, but this is certainly going to be changing. We have a cold front that is pushing down from the north, and it's going to be cooling us down. We're even going to see some showers, yes, and some drizzle tomorrow morning. So for tonight, 67 degrees for the temperature, increasing clouds throughout the night, and they're just going to stick around tomorrow. It's going to be a cloudy, gloomy day from the coast all the way inland. We are going to see some widespread showers and drizzle here along the coast tonight. Oceanside, San Diego, that could start tonight. So some of that drizzle starting off early. Ramona, 57 degrees. Borrego Springs, 65. In Mount Laguna, 50 degrees for our overnight lows. Here's why we have this big dip here in the jet stream, which means this cool air is coming down from Canada. It's also making things just a bit unsettled as far as some wet weather. So taking a look at tomorrow, it's going to be a bit wet for many of us here across the region. Certainly no downpours or anything like that, but more than we typically see. So Oceanside, a high of 72 degrees. San Diego as well. Ramona, 70 degrees, and Alpine, 69. You notice it is quite a bit cooler here than it typically is. That's because of the big dip in the jet stream. So where we have this big dip, we must have a ridge somewhere. Well, that's out to the east, and they are having beautiful conditions in the east and the Midwest. Temperatures will be record challenging. Feels a lot like summer. So once we get to Friday, those clouds are going to be breaking up, and we'll have plenty of sunshine. Temperatures in the low 70s, reaching 80 by Monday here along the coast. Inland, same story. Friday, it's going to be improving with sunshine throughout the week, and we reach almost 90 by Monday. In the mountains, it's cool, 58 degrees Friday, and then we warm it up to the 60s by the beginning of the work week for next week. And in the deserts, we are in the 80s much of the week. What a nice break here. It has been in the hundreds for quite some time. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
Coming up tonight on PBS NewsHour, fighting to keep his legacy alive. Former President Barack Obama swipes back at lawmakers trying to repeal his signature health care bill.
When I see people trying to undo that hard-won progress for the 50th or 60th time, it is aggravating. And all of this being done without any demonstrable economic or actuarial or plain common sense rationale, it frustrates.
And how President Trump's proposed border wall could help drug and human smugglers. That's tonight on PBS NewsHour, starting at 7, right here on KPBS. A new poll finds 56% of registered California voters are thinking about moving because of the state's sky-high housing cost. And nearly half of those voters have considered moving out of state. That's according to a UC Berkeley poll, which found roughly 2/3 of voters in their 40s, 30s, and ages 18 to 29 are particularly concerned. The survey also found majority support for a multi-billion-dollar housing bond, which state lawmakers voted last week to place on the November 2018 ballot. Coming up this Friday, our KPBS Listening Post in El Cajon, and we're looking back at the police shooting of Alfred Alongo. His death sparked protests and raised many questions about race and policing. We want to know if any of those questions have been answered. Our KPBS Listening Post is this Friday from noon to 3 at the corner of Main Street and Magnolia in downtown El Cajon. Again, this is your chance to tell us your story. Cal State faculty members are speaking out about the decision to loosen math requirements by next fall. The Cal State Academic Senate passed a resolution yesterday saying faculty members weren't given enough time to weigh in on the decision that also drops remedial classes. According to the resolution, faculty members say the move may have been in response to outside forces instead of the needs of students. The message from one California congressman on the Delta Tunnel project: give it up. Democrat John Garamendi says the state has already wasted millions of dollars on the tunnel. This comes just one day after the state's largest water district delivered a major blow to the project. Board members with Wetlands Water District voted to pull out of the project yesterday. Now, the decision could mean other water districts will have to pay more if they choose to participate.
I think the tunnels are dead. I thought the tunnels were dead from day one. It made no sense whatsoever. Financially and environmentally, it is a potential disaster for the Delta because it is so big that it could literally drain the Sacramento River.
More state water districts are expected to vote on whether they will help pay for the tunnels in the coming weeks. The California condor is taking flight after nearly going extinct. Biologists say breeding programs have helped spur a slow and steady comeback. AP reporter Terry Che says there are signs the giant bird is expanding in the wild.
In the coastal mountains of central California, biologists closely monitor an endangered icon. The California condor is one of the world's largest birds, with wingspans reaching 10 feet. The giant vultures once patrolled the skies from Mexico to Canada, but in the 20th century they almost went extinct.
It's still one of the most critically endangered species in the world. However, we've been able to increase the population from just 22 birds in 1982 to now somewhere around 450. When we get them from captivity, they go here.
Condors are now reproducing in the wild and expanding their range in California, Arizona, Utah, and Mexico. Biologists say the biggest threat is lead ammunition, which can poison the scavengers when they eat dead animals shot with lead bullets. Despite opposition from gun owners, California is banning lead ammo for hunting statewide to protect condors and other wildlife.
That's purely made out of copper.
The Ventana Wildlife Society gives away copper bullets to hunters and ranchers.
We're already starting to see fewer lead deaths. The condors are surviving longer. Their blood lead levels are coming down.
This year, the San Diego Zoo celebrated the birth of its 200th condor. Chicks live here for about a year as they prepare for life in the wild.
That chick does not see a human. Everything is done through a hand puppet or parents raising a chick. And all through that process, that chick is reinforced that it is a condor and not a person.
They're very interested in us. They're a very curious species.
This condor sanctuary in Big Sur is one of several sites where captive bred birds are released. About 170 condors now live in California, scavenging, breeding, and raising chicks on their own.
I hope that I'm out of a job soon because condors don't need to be managed in the future. I hope that they are self-sustaining and wild and free and nobody needs to trap or tag or monitor them.
It's a hope that could become reality if California condors stay on their current flight path. Terry Che, Associated Press, Big Sur, California.
After generations of family ownership, the Balboa Park Carousel has been sold to a nonprofit organization. KPBS's Sally Hickson says now it's time for renovation.
It's fall. The doors of the carousel are all closed during the week as most kids are back in school. And the Friends of Balboa Park is evaluating how best to maintain this 107-year-old fixture. A $3 million capital campaign was launched on July 25th to cover the cost of the acquisition of the carousel, plus put some restoration and renovation plans into action. Executive Director John Bolthouse says maintaining its history is most important.
Well, the first thing we want to do, Sally, is ensure that we respect the historical integrity of the carousel and the entire site. The carousel has so much history, and we want to celebrate that. And the best way to celebrate that is to preserve it and to restore it back to its former glory.
Take out the brake. We still start the carousel by hand, just the same way they did 100 years ago.
But before any refurbishment or renovation plans were even created, the Friends of Balboa Park hired a historic architect and 2 regional carousel experts to do an assessment study, which involved a lot of analysis in, around, under, and above the carousel. Pat Coy is chairman of the Oversight Committee and said the study was invaluable in suggesting both ongoing and upcoming maintenance.
So what we came up with was a list of areas that needed improvements, typical things like termites, painting, general maintenance. We talked about enhancements in terms of painting the outside. We put the banners up, so we also have a long-term goal of really enhancing the area around the carousel, to kind of tie it all together.
Coy said that could include creating some additional seating, adding shaded areas outside of the building to create more comfort and to be used for special events at the carousel. But for now, in addition to the ongoing maintenance, the drive is on to raise the $3 million needed by 2020. Almost 1/3 of that amount has been raised so far. Sally Hickson, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, a British spy agency returns to the silver screen, and the new characters joining the new Kingsman movie. And on Midday Edition, San Diego got an eye-opening report last week about its earthquake risks. We'll find out how earthquake insurance works in California. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.